Next questioner is, we're going to do a second round. Back to Senator Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to question you, sir, on your statement that you said, your exact words were, peculiarly Canadian practice of vouching. Peculiarly Canadian. And I suppose that's where the problem arises in analyzing legislation. I don't know of any other jurisdiction in which the voting, the right to vote, when we pass a law in Parliament and that law is adjudicated in the courts. The Supreme Court of Canada has ruled in a case called Sauve versus Canada, S-A-U-V-E, that deference shall not be shown to the legislators. Deference shall not be shown. In that, and the Supreme Court of Canada says it would warrant careful examination, but deference shall not be shown. I don't know of any other jurisdiction that you've studied in which the legislature is not shown some deference by the courts. My main question, though, is this. You said peculiarly Canadian as it relates to vouching. Now, it's peculiarly Canadian, I suppose, because we have an act, the Elections Act, that defines, the Senator was just referring to my remarks about residence. Well, your current address or your current residence under Section 8 of the Act says it shall be, and then it defines if you're in a shelter or so on. Your actual address, in fact, one of the subsections is where you sleep. So if you have a senior citizen who goes and visits their children while an election campaign is on, or is there when an election takes place, and that person is guaranteed to vote under Section 3 of our Charter, that person does not have the required documentation that they live at, quote, current address. So they get the son and daughter to vouch for them. And that's why we put in the vouching provision in 2007 as a fail-safe. I mean, because we have our act the way it is and the way the definitions are. And I'm surprised that you would say this is peculiarly Canadian. I mean, I'm sure that there must be other jurisdictions in which vouching, that is a sworn statement that you know that person and you know where they live and you also live in that polling division and the other person takes an oath. Surely there's a fail-safe like that in other jurisdictions in the democratic world.
Well, Senator, I was frightened that I'd be asked this question, and so I did try and look up the answer before I came. I looked up the Administration and Cost of Elections Encyclopedia and Alan Wall's the admirable section on voting operations. He's an Australian who is a world expert on this. I didn't find the answer there. Although he did say that the form of identity must be of high quality, and so we can wing a message on to Australia to Alan Wall to see if he knows any international experience on that, or ask the Administration and Cost of Elections Expert Network if they know, and we can let you know. By peculiarly Canadian, I knew I'd make some error in wording because peculiar sounds rather fishy. It's like funny ha-ha kind of thing. Right. And the last thing I would want to do is to say that because it is specifically Canadian, that it is peculiar in the sense of being somehow you know, unmeritorious. So please excuse me if my wording is less than felicitous on that. and so mea culpa, sir. But on your other point about where you reside, now there is a more serious point here. In a system where people are elected for constituencies, for ridings, it's not only whether somebody is qualified to vote, but whether they're qualified to vote in a particular place for a particular member of parliament. And so address becomes important from that point of view and needs to be defined. In Britain, traditionally, we have had the definition of where you have normally resided on the night of October the 10th, and that was traditionally a legal definition. But there must be some form of legal definition. The fact that you happen to be visiting a relative or indeed a friend or anybody else on a particular day doesn't make you resident there. It is a normal place of residence. And so I think that there are, I'm sure that your electoral officials could give us the relevant election law as to what place of residence means under Canadian law. We have examples, I'm sure, from British cases on that as well.
Well, thank you. Yes, we've spelled it out in the Act in the subsections under Section 8. It's been a real pleasure having you as a witness before this committee. I want to thank you. It's a real pleasure and an honor having you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. And
Well, thank you very much.
Senator From.
Dr. Duschinsky, I have two questions. They're both fairly big, so I'm going to just tell you what they are up front. I can remind you the second one after, but I want to make sure there's time to discuss both. The first one is back to this issue about third-party advertising. So in C-23, there will be a new clause that will create a requirement for third parties to register with Elections Canada to certify that they have a connection to Canada. And so I want to talk about just this idea about, you know, the influence of third parties from outside of a country trying to influence an election, and is registering the right way to try and prevent illegitimate parties from trying to influence Canadian elections. So that's one question. And the other question after that I want you to discuss, you mentioned that the UK Electoral Commission recommended that that the Electoral Commission be stripped of its responsibility for encouraging democratic participation. Bill C-23 also has measures that will remove that function. It's a very important function, democracy promotion. No one's saying that it isn't, but it'll be removed from Elections Canada. So I want you to comment on where you think that function properly belongs in the process.